So I do the survey every time we close this. This is our fourth year, like we said in the morning. So just everybody realize that the real beverages have been rolled out and they're ready. However, the orders are still being arranged. So sit tight, give me a few minutes, if that's okay with you. I do want to thank all the speakers that were out here today doing this. But this is not easy to put together. So I'm going to reverse the sequence. So there was months of preparation, months of what topics do we line up, months of identifying who the speakers are going to be, reaching out to them, getting their time, and then putting a show like we had today. So there are a few people that I'm going to just say, please stand. I'll start with Evelyn. Kat, Edita, Joelle, Maria, Nicole, who's not here, but helped coordinate all the meetings, and obviously John, who was there with us in all the meetings that we had in. So thank you. And if I missed somebody, I apologize. But we had a fantastic crew and great discussions. It really takes a village to put this, so I'm really appreciative that we have that, because somebody did come and compliment me on this. I said, I don't do anything. I just attend the meetings and I agree on the agenda, I agree on things, but there is an entire team behind that does a lot of this for us, so thank you again. The second thing, I do take a lot of notes as we are going through the day because things stand out. And I'm not going to let my hard work go to waste, and you will have to listen to everything I have to say. So, I'll start with the morning, where I think Uni really started with the entire history of how we started with AI, and then machine language, and subsequently deep learning. But what resonated with me about Samsung as a company is they're looking at chips in two different ways. One is for normal consumptions with the GPUs, but then also the enterprise side of things. And the insertion across all of the devices and treating that as an operating system was absolutely fascinating for me, because you had refrigerators that he talked about, and then he talked about the phones and the cool picture you saw on how you can modify your images, talked about the TV, and then all the other device and systems that they're looking at. And the four things that stood out for me as he defined AI was it has to be useful, it has to be personal, it has to be contextual, and it has to be trusted. Okay? So count some of these words that I'm going to then summarize at the end with you. And it has to be human-centered. Then we had Ron Kim, and we talked about the key trends. And again, Bob talked about trust. Vijay talked about digging a hole in the desert and thinking it's your own hole that you're digging, but that we are past that now, which I was relieved to hear. And then subsequently, we talked about financial services industries, we talked about healthcare, and how workflows are being influenced and changed with the use of AI into that. Then we talked about mom and pop shops and how they're really using AI more so from an applicability perspective than really the workflow side of the house. And then the legal side, how we are moving into AI, starting to look at documents, redacting, redlining, etc. So all the human stuff that Brenda just talked about at the end too. Again, when I heard John Lee, he said, trust, risk, and people. Those are the three things. Marty's session, he talked about the 6 things, but I think he summarized the whole concept of humanity at the end of it, when he said, AI without humanity is just ambition, and it creates fear. But AI with humanity is aspiration. It gives life and hope. And that, I thought, was the best way to summarize the speech. Then we had various CEO perspectives, which was very interesting across. Hiring is still increasing, so again, no fear. And then I thought the discussion on education with Dr. Wu, and that the age of the 4-year degrees is almost coming to an end, and how do you really take mid-career resources and train them in AI was really valuable. I think that's a very powerful thing that we all need to be looking forward to, and really thinking about how do we take the workforce and get them ready for AI. So there's hope. And then we talked about enterprise risk management, and we talked about IP protection across the various agents and the LLMs. Empathy was the key word that was used in that session. Then I also wrote down the use of AI in public sector when Minerva said, in the public sector, you don't get to be the decision maker. And you have to build consensus. And when you learn to do that, you get adoption. So I thought that was very powerful. David, Nita, Jack, and Di, you all talked a lot about RAI, and I really liked what you all said. It's less about where it sits, it's about accountability, and trust matters, and the board, and the relationship. And I think David summarized it so well when he said, so we need to start thinking about regulation should now be by design and not by compliance. I thought that was brilliant. Sarah, your practical use cases, as you had each one of them go through, and then I was reading back on little bird. You've got your own work at all financial services industry. But you talked about technology strategy. You brought to life how you're going to change SDLC in the organization. Eric, you're smarter than I ever will be, because the terms you use on financial services were mine, but it was so good. Sounded really good. And I'm glad, because financial services is getting impacted by AI, because you can. And then from your perspective, Brenda, I did write down the acronym that you used about the RJ code. So, relationship, which builds trust. Somebody say that. Jamie, come on, go. Oh, what is the O? Judgment, yes. And the O was? Perfect. Thank you for that. So I think all great sessions, and then I summarized, just taking bullets as I was capturing these notes. So bear with me if I go through this. What we covered, just words. Real AI means it has to have accountability, human, trust, personal, contextual, regulation, compliant, responsible, guardrails, governance, and empathy. Those were the most used words that I captured. And in terms of industry coverage, we talked about consumer goods, we talked about pharma, we talked about tech, we talked about FS, we talked about health, doctors versus AI. People are still listening to doctors, okay? Education, legal, public service, and insurance. What a phenomenal day. What a phenomenal day. We covered a lot of ground, and I was having this conversation with somebody at the break saying, look, the quality and the depth of content that we're talking about today is so much more deeper than what it was at our AI Alliance just 6 months ago. Because it's maturing, there is uptake. Okay. Now, I will end with where we started in the morning. My new boots. I'm still wearing them. They are starting to feel a little bit comfortable. So I will ask you guys, with the content of the day, with AI, are we a little bit more comfortable at the end of the day today? Yes. And your applause will tell me yes or no. Awesome. Thank you. Last but not the least, I do want to tell you all, thank you for taking the time out of your busy days. Hopefully this was worth it. John, thank you always for the leadership. And then there's a QR code that we would ask you all to please provide the feedback as well, because this is helpful. If you all can please do that. And then whoever doesn't do it, we will decline the drinks. With that, you all can all go over, have a fun time for the rest of the evening, and our orders have been served, so have the drinks. Thank you again. It has been a pleasure hosting you all. Appreciate it.